Well, hello again there. Welcome back to my practice room. You just heard me perform the A major Prelude and Fugue number 19 from volume 1 of the Well-Tempered Clavier by J.S. Bach. You know, as I was practicing it this week, I noticed a little connection between the two pieces. The obvious similarity is that they're both in the same key. They're both in A major. But I noticed that there was a little bit of a connection between the subject of this fugue, which goes like this, and parts of the prelude, namely the sequential passages, in which we get a similar kind of alternating interval. I'm being very simplistic here, but let's get a little bit deeper. So in the subject of the fugue, these alternating intervals of an ascending fourth followed by a descending third, and another ascending fourth, another descending third, etc. Ascending fourths followed by a descending third, over and over. That forms the bulk of the texture of this fugue. And it's, of course, is a 3-voice fugue. You remember in the previous video, a little bit of a strange concept there. No formal performance, but rather I played each of the individual voices, the soprano, the alto, and the bass. And this is probably the most important thing to do when you're learning a fugue. But I also pay quite a bit of attention to the variety and contour of the intervals. Interval meaning the distance between two notes. And we have so much of this alternating thirds and fourths. Now those are not humongous intervals. It's not like alternating sevenths or anything like that. But it's a moderate sized interval, I think, thirds and fourths. And to me, that suggests a kind of, at least visually in my mind, a kind of geometric shape over and over again. These alternating thirds and fourths sound to me like geometric shapes with angles, like triangles, squares, rectangles. Each of those alternations of the interval is like another corner in the geometric shape. And we get this in the prelude. They're different intervals, mind you, but it's nearly the same. The intervals are a little larger in the prelude. So we get an ascending fourth followed by a descending fifth. Ascending fourth, descending fifth. So fourths and fifths alternating in the prelude versus thirds and fourths alternating in the fugue. Now maybe it's a bit of a random, far-fetched connection to make, but my ear picked it out. As Norman Corwin once said, the ear is the realist. Ear knows. Now these, in the prelude, these alternating fourths and fifths, as I say, occur in the sequential passages. And we get the first one of those in measure 2. So measure 1 begins. So in measure 2, if I just take the first note of each beat, we get namely, right? So the left hand has those ascending fourths followed by descending fifth. Right hand has the opposite, actually, descending fifth, ascending fourth. Right? Interesting, right? Compared to the fugue, it's pretty similar, if you ask me. We get another sequence in the prelude at measure 5, which sounds like this. I'll start right on 5. So again, if I take out those notes in the left hand, the first note of every beat, and we're in 4/4 by the way, so we have 4 beats per bar. So in the left hand, E, A, D sharp, G sharp. It's a descending fifth, ascending fourth, descending fifth. Still fourths and fifths, just sometimes in opposite order. And then the right hand there, I'm looking at the middle voice. Again, the first note of each beat, we get C sharp, goes up a fourth to F sharp, down a fifth to B, up a fourth to E. Same pattern, right? Again, these, at least for me, geometric shapes. Because these intervals are moderate sized, to me anyway, they suggest more angular lines. I'm doing this with my hand, like Danny Kaye in one of those old musicals where he does a contemporary dance number. A little bit like, well, I have an argyle, the pattern argyle with diamonds crisscrossing each other. I have a sweater. I should have wore it for today with the argyle print on the front. It's a little bit like that, I think. These geometric shapes and always changing. Sometimes going one way, sometimes going the opposite direction. Fourths, fifths, fourths, fifths, or sometimes fifths, fourths, fifths, fourths. But the same shape, the same interval. Interlocking, or like if you take the inside of a clock and the way the grooves fit together and so that the wheels turn and the gears rather turn. It's a little bit like that, I think. It's so reliable and sturdy and self-generating almost. And we get another of these moments at the sequence in the second half of measure 9 through first half of measure 10. So it sounds like. Now they're very short. It's not like it goes on, or just a few times. But then again, the prelude is only 2 pages. So almost a third of the piece is made up of sequential material, aka these alternating fourths and fifths. That spot at measure 9 that I just played, in the middle of 9, I'm taking the quarter notes in the right hand, F sharp up to B, ascending fourth, descending fifth to E, ascending fourth to A, and then the left hand, and it can get a little bit hairy as the 2 voices start to cross, but here I'm taking the first note again of each beat in the left hand, so A, descending by fifth to D natural, ascending by fourth to G sharp, granted it's a tritone, but still a fourth, descending a fifth to C sharp, ascending a fourth to F sharp, and it does it again, descends by fifth to B. So kind of thing. What was the first one? And the one at measure 5, that one was measure 2, and the one at measure 5 again. Right? And we could keep doing this for the rest of them. Why not? Let's see. What do we have? The sequence at measure 15. Yeah, so there is a sequence at 15, but it's of a different nature than the 3 that we've seen before, which have this each of the sequences where I'm saying that I hear these fourths and fifths alternating are places where it's in that kind of a texture. We do have a sequence at 15, but it's a completely different kind of a sequence. So that means the next time around where we do get a sequence like these three we've already found with the fourths and fifths would be, looks like middle of 18. Mr. B is, I don't want to say predictable, but when he finds a little motive, he sticks to it. I think Bach was a wonderful recycler. He takes an idea and he recycles it to the max. Right, so this is in the middle of 18. Again, the first note of each beat. In the middle voice, this is the F sharp, ascending by fourth to B, descending by fifth to E, ascending by fourth to A. And then in the left hand, we have 16ths. So I'm just taking the first note of each of those beats. A, descending by fifth to D, ascending by fourth to G sharp, descending by fifth to C sharp. So we get. Now, of course, there are a lot of other notes going on in each of these sequences. When I play this music, I try to uncover, by taking it apart, which notes do I think are the most interesting and sort of hold the shape or the structure together. And to me, at least in the sequential passages, look for those interlocking intervals. And then when you're playing the piece, once you've got those notes figured out and you can hear them, then when you're playing all the notes, then try to bring out those alternating intervals, those structural notes, by giving more depth into the keyboard, maybe more energized fingertips, more use of your upper arm and your back muscles, and less attention, less depth of sound, less weight on the notes in between. And that helps to give texture and shape to your playing. And there is, in fact, one more sequence of this nature we're talking about, and it occurs in measure 21. So we have, so the notes I'm listening for there, into the downbeat of 22. So those notes include right hand, first note of each beat. We have an A descending by, you guessed it, fifth to D, ascending by fourth to G sharp, descending by fifth to C sharp, and then it does go up one more time by fourth to F sharp. Nice interlocking geometric shapes. I can totally see them, or like stairs, like the forgive my weird hand gestures, but like steps, bum, 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 and then another voice comes in, partway through that staircase, maybe going the other direction, bum, 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 and then a third voice, and it just, it's like a kaleidoscope. I had one of those when I was little, and it was a nice one, and you would hold it up to the light or the window, and you turn the wheel, and the little geometric colored pieces of tissue paper in the end would fall and cascade to make a beautiful shape. It's a little bit like this, I think. What notes am I playing in the left hand there? Or what notes am I listening for in the left hand? This is a measure 21. We've got the F sharp going up by fourth to B, down by fifth to E, up by fourth to A, and down by fifth to D. Right, so we get quite a lot of this. Of those 7 sequences in the prelude, 6 of them work in this fashion. So each one is about a bar in length, so 6 bars worth of the piece consists of these interlocking fourths and fifths. In my mind, I can picture like a revolving staircase, multiple escalators, and I don't know if it's because I've been alone so long here these past few years, and the news that we're getting today is even worse than a year ago. My brain feels like it's just wants to, much of the time, wants to just like sleep the rest of my life away. Some days it's just very hard. It's very hard to do anything. But the one thing I always feel like doing is practicing Bach. And there's something about keeping busy. My mom likes to sew, and I think part of it is just a need to keep your hands busy. Part of that is I can relate to here, but piano playing is more than a hobby for me, and it's very satisfying to experience these kind of images in my mind related to interval and contour in Bach's music. I hope this makes sense. These are such abstract things, and yet I feel so attached to them, and I want to share this enthusiasm, but I also don't want to confuse and mislead. So that is the prelude, alternating fourths and fifths, and then connected to that in a similar way in the fugue, we have the thirds and fourths. Each of these up, down, up, down. And they go along several times, da-dee, da-dee, da-da-da-da, and then there'll be a tie, such as here. There's a tie there in the soprano. And there's a tie in the alto. Ties are a wonderful place to change your voicing. There's another tie, but not a real significant one, because we got the bass coming in. And we get a tie in the bass. There's ties all over the place. And in addition to being sure that you put enough depth into the key strike and finger energy from the tip of the finger and good arm and back support so that that tone carries for the full length of the tie. It's also, as I say, a good place to vary your voicing. So if you've been bringing out one particular voice more than the others, then you come to a tie, and it's like a momentary pause, and then you can use that as a moment to switch and bring out another voice. That works for me. Yeah. Another thing too, with regards to slow practice, which is absolutely essential, and I'm always rather amused when I ask students to play the piece slowly. When in my mind, my idea of slow is this like snail's pace, and the student's idea of slow is always work to cultivate the ability to practice even more slowly, because it's only at slow tempos that you can hear the most subtle little juicy moments, such as some of the little suspensions. I put hearts, an actual heart over a few of these. There's a really juicy one, and I didn't even realize it was there. I mean, I saw it on the page, but I didn't hear the expressiveness of it until I took it super slowly. This is at measure 9, and you always want to take time to hear your suspensions, the clash. When you have one note held and in another voice above, kind of a dissonant moment that then resolves. Those are our suspensions. And there's one here, as I say, in measure 9, starting on the beginning of the bar. Can you hear that? Ah, it's so expressive. So expressive. I love that. Let me do, and you only hear it when you play really slowly. Ah. Oh, if I'm just blowing through it up to speed, you'd never know it was there. It's like we just trampled over a ruby that was, if we had have looked a little bit more in the grass, we'd have found it and we'd be rich. You don't trample over your musical rubies. Bach put them there. He wants us to find them. There's another one at the end of measure 12 into measure 13. I put a little heart. that half of the heart is here because it's across the bar line, and the other half is the next bar. But let me play this measure 12. And there's, I mean, it's all over the place. These, I'm just picking a few that were incredibly pronounced to me and that drew an emotional response from me. You may find other spots. But let me play my expressive moment, my little musical ruby, number 2. And interestingly enough, it's on the same 2 notes, G sharp and A. Ooh, it's a half step. It's biting. It's like an arrow, a dagger, kind of. You're being prickled and pricked and poked and pain. It's pain. But then it resolves, and Bach always resolves. You know, I have such a hard time with 12-tone music and atonal music because so much of it involves intervals that are quite dissonant, that do not resolve. And a lot of people find that incredibly curious and deeply moving. Once in a while, I can taste a bit of that, but I do struggle with that. I love the resolution. I do like order, and Bach's music fulfills that for me, as well as escapism. So those are some of the things that I've been listening for, and I do hope that you can use some of this, not just in this piece, but in the other Bach works that you are playing. Okay, so I have one last thing for you, and it's a joke, because we all need to laugh. Laughing is good. I love this one. What did the mother buffalo say to her little boy when he went off to school? Bye, son. Got that from my pretty good joke book. Prairie Home Companion, Garrison Keillor, had this book for ages. Speaking of books, I also wanted to show this one that I got the other day. I had some gift cards for the bookstore and took a wander and found this lovely book on trees, which is full of all sorts of images about different trees and the leaves and statistics on the kind of flowers and their height and the seeds. These are seed tree conifers, and then we got flowering trees rather. Pink tulip tree. In one of my other videos I was talking about the tulip tree at Lester B. Pearson Park, and I found it in here. Yeah, and you know, looking at these leaves, the shapes of them is it's not only calming for me, but it also helps with my imagination at the piano, because when I'm listening for these intervals and the changing contour of these little motives as they go up and then another voice crisscrosses, and then they converge and they go the opposite way, and these little suspensions and moments, and yet each piece is just so different. Beyond being in a particular key, A major, this one's in B major, this one's in F major, whatever. Beyond that obvious difference, there's just such mood and color and variety of structure, like the leaf, not unlike the leaves on various plants and trees. And so this kind of thing is useful for me. This particular book is the Smithsonian Nature Guide, and it's really quite lovely. Lots of great pictures. So I try to keep it handy by the piano. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon for more Bach. Happy practicing. Bye-bye.